Okay. So although in the sequence, the first chapter that is coming is infections, but I will do immunity first because immunity is more difficult. And then it's better to do a difficult thing first so that we leave the easy chapter for the end, right? Okay, so I'm starting. Okay, so Amna is also here. Yes, so we are starting with immunity. And as you all know that the word immunity means protection against diseases, right? And when we come across this word, then vaccines and these things, come in our mind, diseases, and who else can better understand vaccinations and diseases than this generation because we've experienced a pandemic. Okay. And we start. Um, by definition, immunity is defined as the defense mechanism that any body is expressing as far as its exposure to a disease is concerned, right? So we human beings, we have been made in such a manner, we have been created or programmed in such a manner that our body is meant to heal, right? It is meant to heal. So this means that there are various features inside our body which give us immunity when we are born, which is at birth. And then there are certain other features of our immunity which we acquire as we grow. Okay. So hence from that perspective, we can define immunity into two types, right? The immunity that is found at birth, which we don't acquire, we are born with that kind of immunity, and that is known as the non-specific or the innate immunity. यानी वो जो हमारे अंदर पहले से ही है, which we have at birth. All of us are born with that. That is innate immunity. या इसको हम non-specific immunity भी कहते हैं. And the second immunity that we have is the adaptive or the specific immunity which we acquire as we grow from a baby to an adult, right? So non-specific immunity versus specific immunity, or you can say innate immunity versus adaptive immunity or acquired immunity. ठीक है? Let's see कि ये non-specific immunity, which cells or what body parts are involved in the non-specific immunity, right? So one of the example of the non-specific immunity is right in front of you, in which you can see different body parts जो हमारे अंदर होते हैं since we are born, which give us a non-specific first line of defense against anything which is harmful to our body. It includes saliva, which is rich in antibacterial enzymes, and then lysozyme, tears, and your skin, of course, is a barrier to the entry of various things. Like, for example, अगर my skin broken हो, तो क्या होता है? We are more prone to bacteria. And then we have the skin has stomach acid. Yes, the stomach acid, since it has a very low pH, so it kills many harmful bacteria. Then, just like stomach acid, we in our colon, we have good gut bacteria that protect us against various diseases. ठीक है, फिर हमारी पूरी body जो है, starting from our mouth, अगर हम अपने mouth के internal part को touch करें, it's wet. The internal part of the nose is wet. The tear film on the surface of our cornea and the entire internal part of our digestive system or gut is wet, right? So it's wet because it's lined with mucus. Mucus is made up of a protein known as mucin. It's a glycoprotein. It's a sticky protein, that इसी वजह से mucus भी sticky होता है. And we learned about this mucus in chapter gas exchange also, कि it protects. कुछ याद है? Yes, Amna? The importance of mucus in the gas exchange?
Yes, miss. Miss, it traps bacteria or like diseases that are present in the air, which we might take into ourselves while we breathe. So they get stuck into the mucus.
Yes, right. It traps bacteria. So the reason it traps bacteria is that it's sticky. Okay, anyways, we were just trying to study the various kinds of first line of defense or the non-specific or the innate immunity which we have against against various toxins or foreign substances or any harmful substances. So if this is asked, you can quote any example which is mentioned over here, right? Another way by means of which we can have a non-specific immunity is through the cells. Okay. कौन से cells? I'll tell you which cells they are. Mm, I'll just include it over here only. So non-specific immunity, you can give this example. And the other example that you give, in fact, it's mentioned over here, also involve other immune cells. And over here, the immune cells that it involves are the neutrophils. In fact, let me not use the word neutrophil. I'll use the word phagocytes. Example, phagocytes. Not the lymphocytes, but phagocytes. So this means that when your phagocytes or neutrophils are engulfing foreign bacteria and they are, digesting it by means of the fusion of the lysosome with the phagocyte, forming a phagolysosome, right? And then finally digesting, killing the bacteria and getting rid of those killed bacterial contents by exocytosis out of the cell. ये सारा जो procedure है, it is also a part of the non-specific immunity. तो non-specific immunity के अंदर ये सारी चीजें आती हैं, right? All these which you can see over here, and also the involvement of the white blood cells, which are phagocytes. Only phagocytes, right? Not the lymphocytes. So this is the first line of defense. Acha. So this means that if I go back and if I say कि immunity को हम कैसे divide कर सकते हैं? So just recapping it for reinforcement, non-specific, I'm just giving it many names, found at birth. Okay. An example is all the different examples: saliva, skin, mucus, etc. Okay, I'm not naming all of them. And then the other example is cellular example, which is the cells. And in these cells, you only have phagocytes. When we now discuss about the second kind of the immunity, which is the specific immunity, you can call it adaptive immunity or acquired immunity, then we say the only example that you have is that of lymphocytes. Okay? So you will not take the name of lymphocytes over here. Lymphocytes do not play a role in the non-specific immunity, only the specific, adaptive or acquired immunity, right? Achha. And within the lymphocytes, again, you have two examples. You have the T cells and the B cells. The T and the B cells are two different kinds of lymphocytes. Any questions up till now?
Miss, when we get vaccines, we get antigens into the body, so that's specific?
Yes, that's specific. Very soon I'll be giving you more details about specific. Specific को अगर आपको याद रखना है ना, तो एक चीज से याद रखो. Whenever antibodies are formed inside your body, antibodies, it means it's a specific response. And when you receive vaccinations or vaccines, so antibodies develop inside your body. तो ज़्यादातर जो भी हमें vaccine वाली immunity मिलती है ना, that is a specific immunity. But right now, I think it's very premature to ask this question, because before even that, you need to know the definition of these four basic terminologies, जिसके बगैर आपको समझ ही नहीं आएगा कि immunity किस चीज का नाम है, right? So to understand immunity, you need to know the definitions of these four terminologies. What are they? Antigen, self, non-self, immune response. तो सबसे पहले देखते हैं antigen क्या चीज है. अच्छा, आई एम स्टार्टिंग विद द वेरी बेसिक एंड सिंपल डेफिनेशंस, ताकि आपको याद रहे और आप आखिर तक भी, मैं आपसे बार बार पूछती रहूंगी कि व्हाट इज एन एंटीजन, व्हाट इज एन एंटीजन, तो आप मुझे यही एक जवाब देना कि दिस इज एन एंटीजन. बहुत लंबी चौड़ी डेफिनेशन बताने की जरूरत नहीं है, बिकॉज द मोर कॉम्प्लिकेटेड द डेफिनेशन इज, the more likely chances are that you will forget the basics of that terminology, right? So an antigen, any molecule, any molecule, it can be a virus, it can be a protein, it can be a bacterium, it can be a parasite, kuch bhi, right? Which can trigger antibody formation is by definition an antigen. सबसे आसान definition. Any molecule which can trigger antibody formation is an antigen. अब इसमें बहुत लंबी चौड़ी वो है. There can be different kinds of antigens. They can be, you know, they can be proteins in nature. They can be glycoproteins, glycolipids हो सकते हैं, polysaccharide कुछ भी हो सकता है, right? अच्छा, but होना क्या चाहिए कि that antigen should have the capability to trigger the development of antibodies. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब इसमें नीचे क्या लिखा है? All cells possess antigens in their cell surface membranes. They act as markers, enabling cells to recognize each other. ये एक और कहानी है, right? What does this mean? This actually means that, let me draw this diagram. Your body is made up of trillions of cells. So I'm just making different varieties of cells, okay, of different colors. 3 variety abhi maine batayi. Every cell has its own antigens. What do I mean by that? What I mean by this is that every cell has its own cell surface membrane proteins, which can be glycolipids or glycoproteins. And these proteins, they behave as cell markers. We have done this concept when we were doing cell membranes. जब हम cell membrane कर रहे थे, तो हमने ये पढ़ा था उसमें कि हर cell के पास अपने antigens होते हैं, which makes that cell unique, isn't it? For example, what makes a red blood cell unique is of course its features and also the antigens. What makes a white blood cell unique is many other features कि उसके पास nucleus भी है, ये भी है, वो भी है, लेकिन उसके अपने antigens. And these antigens, they show up as cell markers. And what are these cell markers in reality? They are glycolipids, glycoproteins, etc., etc. That makes them, दूर से हम देख सकते हैं कि अच्छा ये है, ये red blood cell है, ये white blood cell है. अच्छा, so what's the difference between these antigens and this antigen जिसको हमने अभी जो है वो define किया है कि an antigen is a molecule which can cause antibody formation? फर्क है. And what is that difference? For example, now comes the details of this. An antigen can trigger antibody formation. लेकिन हर antigen क्या antibody formation करेगा? The answer is no, right? There are some antigens, ये जो सारे मैंने अभी यहाँ बनाए, यहाँ बनाए, यहाँ, हर जगह. These antigens, they are found on the surface of the cells, okay? So antigens are found on the surface of the cell membranes, outer surface, okay? And these antigens is what makes a certain cell different or unique from the other cells. These antigens are known as surface antigens. They don't trigger the development of the antibody. Bilkul bhi nahi. They will the reason why they are not triggering the development of the antibody is that these antigens are recognized as self. They are not recognized as non-self. तो अब बात आती है कि ये self और non-self क्या है, right? So let's go into the depth of self and non-self. Now look here. Your immune system has got the capability to recognize between self and non-self antigens. Non-self kya hai? All those substances and all those cells which are recognized by the immune system as foreign and they can stimulate an immune response, yeah, they can stimulate an antibody production are recognized as non-self. All those substances or cells which are produced by the body that the immune system does not recognize as foreign and does not initiate antibody production is self. तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि ये जो आपके surface antigens है ना, जो आपके अपनी body cell पे लगे हुए हैं, यानी कि red blood cell के पास भी एक surface antigen है, white blood cell के पास भी है, ये सारे surface antigens हैं. They are your self antigens. So hence, these antigens will not trigger antibody formation. Any questions?
No, miss.
No question. Okay, so look at this. Look at this cartoon kind of picture that this is the your self antigen. Let's suppose कि आपका कोई red blood cell है या कोई भी cell है तो उसके पास अपने self antigens हैं. And this is the white blood cell of your body. This white blood cell does not do anything to this antigen. It doesn't destroy it. Why? Because it has these surface antigens which are serving as self markers. ठीक है, markers. क्यों ये self markers है? क्योंकि इनकी एक खास composition है glycoproteins की, which will not be recognized as non-self by the cells of your immune system. As opposed to it, ये है आपका bacterium. It's a bacillus. Now the bacillus के तो बड़े unique antigens हैं उसके surface पे लगे हुए. These antigens will be recognized as non-self by the cells of your immune system. Let's say by your lymphocytes, and the lymphocytes will quickly develop antibodies against it. ठीक है? So going back, we had to actually know the definition of antigen, self, non-self and immune response. अब हम immune response की definition देख लेते हैं. This is the immune response. A complex series of responses of the body to the detection of a non-self antigen, and that complex series of responses involves both the cells. The lymphocytes, whose job is to produce antibodies, ठीक है, या तो वो antibodies बनाएंगे या जो है वो क्या करेंगे, किल करेंगे cells को directly, ठीक है, एक तो ये हो गया. And then phagocytes, the name that the word phago means to eat and cytes means to cell. So these are cells that are going to eat or engulf the pathogens and damage the cells. So this means that immune response is defined as a complex series of events that involves the action by the lymphocytes and the phagocytes. What is the job of the lymphocytes? The lymphocytes can either make antibodies, जो कि जो है वो antigen को destroy कर देंगे, or sometimes the lymphocytes can directly kill the cells which are infected by the pathogens. और phagocytes क्या करेंगे? वो engulf करेंगे, तोड़ेंगे, फोड़ेंगे, and finally they are going to digest the bacterium. G. And if you have no questions, then I'll move forward. Yes, Parisha, are you understanding this?
Yes, miss.
No questions?
No, miss.
Okay. Now we begin with the cells of the immune system. हम वही कर रहे हैं लेकिन और अब डिटेल से करेंगे. So from the chapter transport in mammals, because I had discussed about cells के बारे में मैंने discussion की थी when I was teaching you chapter transport in mammals when we were doing the blood. So we studied that your blood is a reddish liquid of which we have plasma and the cellular components. ठीक है? Cellular components में सबसे ज़्यादा red blood cells हैं जो कि इस picture में भी नजर आ रही हैं, सही? And then you have these white blood cells. अब red blood cells को थोड़ा भूल जाते हैं अभी, and let's just focus on the white blood cells again. White blood cells are classified into phagocytes and lymphocytes. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब white blood cells को ना classify करने के दो तरीके हैं. And what are those two methods? I'll tell you what they are. Let me go to that page. इस page बहुत अच्छा बताया हुआ है. Yes. Here you can see white blood cells का जो biological name है वो है leukocytes because the word leuco means white. ठीक है? Not that they are white in color, लेकिन ये red नहीं है इसलिए इनका नाम पड़ गया white blood cells. ठीक है? अच्छा, white blood cells को आप किस तरह से classify कर सकते हो? You can classify them as granulocytes and agranulocytes. मतलब वो white blood cells जिसके अंदर granules होते हैं, तो आपको यहाँ पे granules नजर आ रहे हैं, right? And these two white blood cells don't have granules in their cytoplasm. They don't. तो एक तो ये तरीका है इनको classify करने का. Then there is a second way of classifying them, and that is they can either be phagocytes or they can be lymphocytes. तो अगर वो फैगोसाइट है, इसका मतलब वो सेल को खाते हैं, दे आर दे ईट द सेल्स. एंड इफ दे आर लिम्फोसाइट्स, दे डोंट ईट द सेल बट दे प्रोड्यूस एंटीबॉडीज. तो बाय दैट डेफिनेशन कौन कौन से सेल जो है वो आपको आपके फैगोसाइट्स हैं, वो ये हैं. न्यूट्रोफिल इज अ फैगोसाइट एंड मोनोसाइट इज अ फैगोसाइट. ये दो, ठीक है. न्यूट्रोफिल इज अ फैगोसाइट and monocyte is a phagocyte. The places where I have put two crosses. और अगर हम इस क्लासिफिकेशन को हटा के और ये वाली क्लासिफिकेशन करते हैं कि which ones are granulocytes and which ones are agranulocytes, तो ये सब granulocytes हैं. This and this is granulocyte and this is agranulocytes. ठीक है. So this means that, अच्छा अब इसमें आपको ये डिसाइड करना है कि कौन कौन से सेल्स आपके सिलेबस में हैं. So the cells which are in your syllabus are, let me just write this down. Two ways by means of which we can classify them. Immune system cells, okay? So we can classify them in two ways. And then the second way is that we can classify them as phagocytes and lymphocytes. So in granulocytes, we have neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. Eosinophil and basophil are not a part of your syllabus. You can just remember their names. So I'm just putting them in a red box. Details not required, right? In agranulocytes, again, we have lymphocytes and we have monocytes. Both of them don't have a granule. And over here, जो दूसरी वाली classification है, उसमें phagocytes में we have two varieties, neutrophil and monocyte. ये वाला, right? And lymphocyte में we have further two varieties, T cell and B cell. ठीक है, ये सारा रट्टा है, इसको रटने से आपको याद रह जाएगा. There is nothing to understand in this, right? The thing that you need to remember is which cells are important for your syllabus. So I am going to just put a tick on those cells. Neutrophil, lymphocytes, monocytes, T cells, B cells. In fact, lymphocytes heat actually T cells and B cells, right? So these are the cells which we need to know in detail. How in detail? You should know how to identify them, label them. P3 में भी बहुत ज़्यादा आता है. You should know you should know how to draw them, how to draw a low power plant diagram, a high power plant diagram. हर तरह से आपको आना चाहिए, right? So this is how the cells look like. For example, this cell, जिसको मैं अभी zoom in कर रही हूँ, this one is a neutrophil. It has a cell membrane, cytoplasm, granular, multi-lobed irregular shaped nucleus. ठीक है, so that's a neutrophil. और ये granulocyte भी है और phagocyte भी है. ठीक है, फिर हम आते हैं, यहाँ पे हमें नजर आता है कि this is a lymphocyte. इसको अगर मैं इसका plan diagram बनाऊं तो मैं कैसे बनाऊंगी? Let me use a black color. So I'm going to make this is your cell surface membrane and this is your nucleus. Nucleus is almost filling the entire cytoplasm, with a little space over here. And the cytoplasm is entirely non-granular, regular oval to round shaped nucleus. Monocyte. A monocyte again is a non-granular cytoplasm. It has a kidney-shaped nucleus. It has a cell membrane. It is an agranulocyte and it's a phagocyte also. Any questions? In the beginning, girls, I hope you guys can hear me. Because there's complete silence in the class.
Yes, miss, we can hear
Acha,
you.
thank you. When we were in the beginning, we were talking about non-specific and specific immunity. So I told you कि non-specific immunity जो है, वो, let me go back and show you that slide. This was the non-specific immunity. ये सारे examples थे, and one of the example was that of phagocytes. ठीक है? तो अब कैसे मिलती है ये non-specific immunity? Let's go into the details. कि the non-specific immunity is given by the phagocytes, ठीक है? और इसमें हमारे पास दो तरह के phagocytes हैं, एक neutrophils हैं and the other are monocytes, ठीक है? अच्छा, neutrophils, they give you protection mainly against bacteria, and monocytes give us protection against parasites like plasmodium, malarial parasite जो है ना, उसके against monocytes हमें protection देते हैं दोनों ही phagocyte, लेकिन जो आपका neutrophil है, it is giving you protection against smaller organisms like bacteria छोटे होते हैं size में, and monocytes give us protection against the larger organisms which are parasites like plasmodium. ठीक है? अच्छा, because you know what, plasmodium is a protoctist, whereas a bacteria is a prokaryote. अच्छा, let's go into the details of how this job is done by the monocytes and by the neutrophils. एक और बात मुझे बतानी है, in fact चलो मैं I'll just tell you when we go into the details of it. Just a recap of the way the white blood cells can be classified. So you can just look at this slide for a minute so that you know this concept is reinforced. Okay. Okay. Let's start with phagocytes. In phagocytes, we have two examples, neutrophils and monocytes. ठीक है, तो देखते हैं ये पैदा कहाँ पे होते हैं. The phagocytes are produced in the bone marrow. Bone marrow is the origin, the place of origin of the phagocytes, right? So they are produced in the bone marrow, they are stored over there, and then after उनकी production हो जाती है, then they are released into the blood. आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वो blood में release होते हैं. And the most important phagocyte that is released in the blood is the neutrophil. ठीक है, एक दफा ये blood bone marrow में बन जाता है, फिर ये release होता है. Release होके कहाँ कहाँ जाता है? It travels through your body in the blood. It can enter your intercellular spaces by squeezing through the capillary walls. अगर आपको याद हो, when I was doing transport in mammals with you, और जब मैं आपको arterial end and venous end पे tissue fluid or intercellular space और ये सब समझा रही थी, तो I told you that the tiny pores in the capillary walls, which are fenestrations, they don't allow the plasma proteins to leak through them and the red blood cells to leak through them. But yes, a phagocyte can actually squeeze itself and it can leave the blood, right? तो यही बात यहाँ पे इन्होंने लिखी हुई है कि the phagocytes, which are the neutrophils, can travel through body in the blood. They can enter the intercellular space and tissue by squeezing through the capillary walls. They are released in large numbers during infections. Their lifespan is short-lived, and their job is that they engulf pathogens and dead cells. Okay? I don't know whether you guys remember or not, but I think Amna must be remembering because she was there in the initial part जब मैं cells करवा रही थी, start of AS. So yes, Amna, do you remember when I was teaching you lysosomes? So I taught you about the function of lysosomes, जिसमें lysosomes can actually engulf, they can help phagocytosis and they can also help digest the old organelles and dead cells. याद है आमना? Let me show you that diagram. I have that diagram and I actually want to recap through it. Have a look at this. This is an electron micrograph of a lysosome. मैं इसलिए ये बता रही हूँ ताकि आपको ना अब the time has come that you should start linking one chapter with another chapter. इस डायग्राम में आपको एक बड़ा सा लाइसोसोम सॉरी बड़ा सा नहीं एक सेल नजर आ रहा है उसमें लाइसोसोम्स नजर आ रहे हैं and it's showing you कि how the lysosome, it's an organelle in the cell which has hydrolytic enzymes, how that lysosome plays a role in the destruction of various cells. पार्ट 1 दिखाया है, पार्ट 2, पार्ट 3. पार्ट जो 1 है ना, अगर आप उसको गौर से देखो, आई एम पुटिंग माय कर्सर ऑन इट. पार्ट 1 शोज यू ये आपका बैक्टीरिया आ गया, राइट? बैक्टीरिया आ गया. उसके बाद क्या हो रहा है? एंडोसाइटोसिस इज हैपनिंग. आप इस तरह इमेजिन कर सकते हो कि ये जो पूरा है ना आपका, लेट सपोज कि ये कोई व्हाइट ब्लड सेल है, राइट? तो व्हाइट ब्लड सेल इसको क्या कर रहा है, या फिर न्यूट्रोफिल है, इनगल्फ कर रहा है. ऐसे इनगल्फ कर लिया. सो दिस इनगल्फिंग इज phagocytosis. In fact, endocytosis is phagocytosis. Endocytosis phagocytosis की ही एग्जाम्पल है. जब एंडोसाइटोसिस, हम साइटोप्लाज्म के अंदर कोई चीज दे रहे हैं, तो दिस इज द जॉब ऑफ अ न्यूट्रोफिल. ये एंडोसाइटोसिस हो रही है, ये phagocytic vacuole बन गया, and now this phagocytic vacuole is fusing with the lysosome and the lysosome is made by the Golgi. तो अब जब इसकी फ्यूजन होगी ना, तो हम क्या कहते हैं, हम इस स्ट्रक्चर को कहते हैं फैगोलाइसोसोम. क्यों फैगोलाइसोसोम? क्योंकि ये लाइसोसोम और फैगो जो हमें जो फैगोसाइट ने ये वैक्यूल बनाया है उसकी कॉम्बिनेशन है ये फैगोलाइसोसोम. इनकी फ्यूजन हो गई. The lysosome will empty its hydrolytic enzymes. Hydrolytic enzymes are going to break down the bacteria and finally release their products of digestion out of the cell by exocytosis. Yes, Alia, are you understanding this?
Yes, miss.
So coming back to where we were somewhere here. तो हम यही पढ़ रहे थे कि not only your neutrophils, हम न्यूट्रोफिल का फंक्शन कर रहे हैं ना, कि ये बोन मैरो में बनता है, and after being made in the bone marrow it is released into the blood. In the blood it can be squeezed through capillary fenestrations into the tissue spaces. जब भी हम बीमार होते हैं, हमें बुखार होता है, if we get our blood tested we will see that our neutrophil count has been increased, जो कि साइन है इस बात का, अच्छा साइन है ये बहुत ज्यादा. अगर किसी इन्फेक्शन में आप अपना ब्लड सीपी करवाते हैं, सीबीसी करवाते हैं, एंड यू सी दैट योर न्यूट्रोफिल काउंट इज हाई, इट शोज दैट योर इम्यून सिस्टम इज हेल्दी, वो काम कर रहा है और बैक्टीरिया को किल कर रहा है, राइट? सो योर न्यूट्रोफिल्स विल engulf the pathogens and dead cells, and neutrophils are the most common WBC, which means कि अगर हम ये कहें कि हमारी बॉडी में टोटल नंबर ऑफ WBCs कितने हैं ना सारे मिला के, lymphocytes P or phagocytes P, तो they are around 7,000 to, just a minute, the total number of WBCs we have in our body is 7,000 to 11,000 cells per cubic millimeter of your blood. इसमें से यानी जितने भी ये सेल हैं 11,000 समझने, तो इस 11,000 का जो 60 to 70% है ना, it is neutrophils. So the most common white blood cell that we have in our blood are the neutrophils. ठीक है? So this is how they do it. हम details अब देखते हैं neutrophils की. ठीक है? This is the details of the neutrophils. अच्छा. Both of you will read it and I'm going to ask both of you, Parisha you also and Alia you also, कि इससे हमें क्या समझ आ रहा है. बहुत सारे इसमें पुराने कॉन्सेप्ट्स भी हैं, कुछ एक दो नए कॉन्सेप्ट्स भी हैं. रीड करो आप इसको अच्छी तरह से. आई एम गिविंग यू 5 minutes and then I'll be asking questions. Yes. Okay, Parisha. What is happening in step number 1? Can you explain what is happening in step number 1? Only step number 1.
The phagocyte is being attracted towards the bacteria.
The phagocyte is being attracted towards the bacteria. What do you mean by chemotaxis? Which chemical is being released? What is this chemical and where is this chemical coming from?
They're like the antigens released by the damaged cells.
See, so the description is telling you that the phagocytes, they are somewhat attracted towards the bacteria. Why are they attracted? Because either the bacteria itself, हम bacteria को इस वक्त antigen कह रहे हैं, ठीक है? Either the antigen itself, या फिर हो सकता है कि इस बैक्टीरिया ने हमारे किसी सेल को डिस्ट्रॉय किया हो, and destroyed or damaged cells are releasing a chemical which is known as histamine. Whenever, remember this girls, whenever our body is invaded by bacteria or by any other pathogen like a virus or a parasite or a bacterium, they cause havoc within the body. They cause damage to cells. And when cells are damaged, they release inflammatory products. They release chemicals of inflammation. Inflammation का मतलब tissue damage, ठीक है? और वो जो chemicals होते हैं उसमें से एक सबसे important inflammatory chemical जो है वो histamine है. Now that histamine is released inside your tissues, and histamine becomes an attractive factor for the neutrophil. So the neutrophil is attracted towards the bacterium. That's the first step. The second step is recognition and attachment. इसमें क्या हो रहा है? Yes, Alia. What is happening in recognition and attachment?
Miss, the antigen is recognized by the receptor on the surface of the neutrophil, and then they bind together.
Yes. Here the antigen which is shown to you is the bacterium. ये जो आपको rod shape नजर आ रहा है, this is the bacillus. ये भी है, ये भी है. Now over here there are two ways of recognition and attachment shown to you. ये है आपका way number 1 और ये है आपका way number 2. The way number the method number 1 is that the bacterium can directly attach to the neutrophil membrane. ये जो membrane है वो neutrophil की membrane है, ठीक है? दूसरा तरीका क्या है? इस बैक्टीरियम को खींच खींच के कौन लेके आ रहा है? एंटीबॉडी. दिस वाई शेप येलो कलर्ड स्ट्रक्चर इज नोन एज द एंटीबॉडी, एंड दिस एंटीबॉडी हैज सॉर्ट ऑफ, ये जो है आपकी ये जो एंटीबॉडी है ये खींच के ला रही है अपनी तरफ बैक्टीरियम को, एंड where will this antibody sort of bring this bacterium to? It's going to drag this bacterium to attach to this receptor, right? So this means that the recognition and attachment can happen in two ways. Either the bacterium can directly attach to the neutrophil membrane, or the bacterium can be marked by an antibody. जैसे हमने किस पे टैग लगा दिया और मार्क करने के बाद हमने उस बैक्टीरियम को खींच के जो है एंटीबॉडी लेके आ गई onto a certain place which is known as the receptor for the antibody marker, right? ये recognition attachment हो गई. Now comes the endocytosis. In chapter cell membrane, we said endocytosis is a kind of active transport or bulk transport में ही आता है. Bulk transport means transport of big substances. और उसमें एक example हमने की थी endocytosis and exocytosis. Both these processes, whether endo or exo, हमने cell membrane में पढ़ा था कि they need ATP, they are active processes. ठीक है? Endocytosis का मतलब कोई बड़ी सी चीज सेल अपने अंदर ले रहा है, और ये कौन सा सेल अपने अंदर ले रहा है? This cell is the phagocyte. इसीलिए ही हम इसको phagocyte कहते हैं, क्योंकि it is eating a bacterium, right? अच्छा, इसने सबसे पहले इसको engulf किया, surround किया, इतना करीब आ गए ये दोनों parts की, ये fuse हो गए यहाँ पे, ठीक है? And then what is formed? A phagocytic vacuole is formed. अभी पीछे भी मैंने आपको cell membranes में दिखाया था कि ये पहले बनता है, and then the lysosome fuses with the phagocytic vacuole to form a phagolysosome. ठीक है? जिसमें lysosome अपने सारे जो enzymes है ना वो यहाँ पे empty करता है. so that it can digest the bacterium. Killing and digestion of bacterium takes place क्योंकि यहाँ पे बहुत सारे enzymes हैं जो कि इसको kill करेंगे, digest करेंगे. And in this way, the body can get rid of any bacterium that has attacked it. Let's just take a small break. This was right now in front of you. What we have done is that we have done all the 4 steps which are involved as far as phagocytosis is concerned. Phagocytosis is a function of neutrophils as well as monocytes. ठीक है, अभी जो हमने ये concept map किया है, ये neutrophils के लिए किया है. This is the most frequently asked question in the structured paper. ये जरूर पूछा जाता है. इसके साथ वो cell membrane के concepts भी include कर देते हैं. Lysosomes के बारे में पूछ के इसको एक बड़ा सा comprehensive क्वेश्चन बना लेते हैं जिसमें सेल, इम्यूनिटी और सेल मेम्ब्रेन सब कुछ उन्होंने इंक्लूड किया हुआ होता है. अच्छा, दिस वाज अबाउट द न्यूट्रोफिल. अब हम थोड़ा सा मोनोसाइट का कर लेते हैं जो कि बहुत छोटा सा पार्ट है. सो लेट्स डू द मोनोसाइट. ठीक है. अच्छा, अब जिस तरह से न्यूट्रोफिल का ओरिजिन जो है वो बोन मैरो था, तो मोनोसाइट का भी ओरिजिन जो है वो बोन मैरो ही है, राइट? It is produced in the bone marrow, it circulates in the blood for some time, and then after circulating in the blood, it is finally, this monocyte will settle down into tissues जहाँ पे ये mature हो जाएगा. And when it is mature, it is known as a macrophage. Okay? I repeat once again. Just now we said that आपके phagocytes का जो origin है वो bone marrow है. चाहे वो phagocyte neutrophil हो या वो phagocyte क्या हो, मोनोसाइट हो, दोनों ओरिजिनेट होते हैं बोन मैरो में. अच्छा, ओरिजिनेट होने के बाद न्यूट्रोफिल्स दे कीप सर्कुलेटिंग इन द ब्लड, लेकिन मोनोसाइट्स थोड़ी ही देर के लिए सर्कुलेट होते हैं और फिर जाके टिश्यूज में रिजाइड करते हैं. एंड व्हेन दे रिजाइड एंड मैच्योर इन द टिश्यूज, दे आर नो लॉन्गर नोन एज मोनोसाइट्स, दे आर नोन एज मैक्रोफेजेस, राइट? तो द सेकेंड वेराइटी ऑफ फैगोसाइट्स, यू कैन से मोनोसाइट भी आप उसको कह सकते हो, मैक्रोफेज भी कह सकते हो. यू कैन से मोनोसाइट इज एन इमेच्योर सेल, macrophage is a mature cell. ठीक है? What is their role? They play an integral role in initiating the immune response. थोड़ा सा ये different है from the neutrophils. Neutrophils भी engulf करते हैं pathogens को, ये भी engulf करते हैं, लेकिन neutrophils इसको completely digest कर लेते हैं. ये completely नहीं करते, थोड़ा बहुत they cut them up and they display the foreign antigens on their surface so that they can be recognized by lymphocytes. Can I just take 2 to 3 minutes more? Yes, Alia?
Okay, miss.
Right? So, what do the macrophages do? Let's say कि अगर ये एक macrophage है, right? इसके अंदर हम एक antigen बना लेते हैं, ये वाला, red वाला. ये उसको, they cut these antigens and display them on their surface. अब ये जो display कर रहे हैं ना, तो इसका मतलब they are displaying it so that this antigen can be recognized by the lymphocytes, क्योंकि lymphocytes को antibodies बनानी है, इसलिए ये मैक्रोफेजेस डिस्प्ले करते हैं ताकि लिम्फोसाइट्स इनसे अट्रैक्ट हो सकें. ठीक है? अच्छा, any cell that displays an antigen on its surface is known as an APC. APC meaning an antigen presenting cell. So by that definition, a macrophage is an antigen presenting cell. Why? Because it can cut an antigen, display the antigens on its surface, so that they can be recognized by lymphocytes. ठीक है? फिर क्या होगा? lymphocytes अगर उसको recognize करेंगे, जैसे ही वो recognize करेंगे तो वो उसी खास किस्म की antibody बना लेंगे which is specific to that antigen. See, so now we can see from this description हमें एक बात का अंदाजा हो गया कि जो आपकी non-specific immunity है ना, non-specific, उसका connection है specific immunity के साथ. How? Non-specific immunity was the immunity given by or provided by neutrophils and macrophages. Specific immunity मिल रही थी हमें lymphocytes से. तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि जो macrophages हैं, जब ये APC बनते हैं ताकि lymphocytes इनको recognize कर सकें, इसका मतलब there is a connection or there is an interrelationship or interdependency between non-specific and specific immunity. ठीक है? Macrophages originate in the bone marrow as monocytes, And once they leave the blood and reside to patrol the organs like the lungs, liver, spleen, kidney, etc., they are now known as fully developed macrophages. Size में ये neutrophils से बड़े हैं and they can live longer than the neutrophils. ठीक है, they can live up to months, whereas neutrophils can live only for days to weeks. I hope whatever I taught today was understood and there are no questions, right? Acha, girls, please tell me, do you have a free time tomorrow? Like 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. मुझे अभी से बता दो. I want to take another class.
Miss, I won't be available tomorrow. I have tuitions throughout.
Acha, okay. No problem. What about Friday?
Miss, can you make it Saturday instead?
Saturday what time?
Didi?
Saturday,
Miss,
is Saturday 7 p.m. Pakistani, is it good?
yes, Miss, I'm okay with it.
What about Alia, 7 p.m. Pakistani, Saturday?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, so Saturday 7 p.m. Inshallah, right? Okay. Lafis.
Thank you, Miss. Love
You're
is.
welcome. Lafis.